Okay, I think we've got everything back. Um, Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Learning Space. I'm Oops. If you're watching on YouTube or Google Plus, wherever you are, you can use the Q&A app to leave us a comment, question. We've already got a comment from Michael Jobin in caps, so I have to do the voice. Prepare your minds for scientific value. So thank you, Mike. And yeah, everybody over in Europe, please be safe. I have with me three guests from the Giant Magellan Telescope teacher training program at McDonald Observatory. So we have Kelly Finkelstein. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Keely.
Keely. I'm sorry, Keely.
No problem. Hi.
Judy Meyer. Hi, you're currently muted, so you need to unmute. The toolbox isn't responding. Yes, you need to click the microphone to unmute. And we also have Mark Wetzel. Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, Judy, because I can't unmute. You need to press the microphone button to unmute yourself so we can hear you. So try and find that on the screen. I wanted to hear a little bit about the teacher professional development programs that you guys have going on. First of all, what is the GMT? What is the Giant Magellan Telescope?
Well, the Giant Magellan Telescope is one of the next generation telescopes that a big collaboration is building. It's going to be over 24 meters in diameter once it's all finished. So the University of Texas at Austin and McDonald Observatory is one of the founding partners of the GMT consortium. And so we here at McDonald Observatory have been a part of it from the get-go, but we are just now starting to do some of our teacher training programs related to it. And GMT will be one of the kind of world-class, groundbreaking, extremely large telescopes that are going to be coming along within the next 5 to 10 years or so. Hopefully GMT has already started groundbreaking, clearing the site. It'll be located in Chile. They're casting mirrors already, and hopefully first flight at the telescope will happen right around 2020, and the full instrument will be in the full operation mode a few years after that.
Awesome, awesome. So what do each of you do on the project or with the teacher workshop? You want to start, Keely?
Sure, I'll start. So I'm an astronomer here in Austin at University of Texas, but a lot of what I do is astronomy education. So I work with our astronomy education team, those that are out at McDonald Observatory like Mark and Judy. One of the primary things I'm involved in is our teacher training program. We do professional development for K through 12 teachers. So we do a lot of our workshops during the summer out at the observatory where teachers get to come out there and visit and do a whole few-day-long workshop with us. So I work with the team out there, and I also work with astronomers here in Austin to develop new astronomy content and education materials that we can use both at the kind of K-12 level but also at the university level as well.
Very cool. Mark?
Well, hi everybody. My name is Mark Wetzel. I'm the education coordinator here at McDonald Observatory, and of course we're located in a very remote location, as you can imagine. McDonald Observatory is in far west Texas. It's very remote, high altitude desert, and an excellent place to do astronomical research, and an even better place, I think, to do teacher professional development workshops involved with the Giant Magellan Telescope project. So Judy and I work together. I'll let Judy speak on her behalf. We train teachers in grades K to 12 here at the observatory, and we also spend time with their students when they come visit the observatory. So we provide standard-based education programs for these kids and the students and these teachers when they visit the observatory, and in the summer we do professional development. We also have a video conferencing studio here, and we provide education programs, the same ones that have been altered so that they accommodate video conferencing technologies to students across Texas and the nation. So that's what I do. I'm involved with Keeley's team.
Very cool. Very cool. Judy? We still can't hear you. If you want to leave the Hangout and come back in, that should recycle your audio. Yeah. Okay. I could lip read that. Let me try that. Usually I can't lip read. So why don't you guys tell me a little bit about the recent workshop? So it happened over June 29th to July 1st. Tell us a little bit about that teacher workshop.
Yeah, so we had 15 teachers. They were kind of upper middle school through high school, so about 8th grade through 12th grade teachers that joined us, 15 of them out at the observatory for this 3-day workshop, and yeah, right at the end of June, first part of July. And so for this first one, this was kind of our, I guess, pilot testing of our first workshop related to the GMT, and even though we don't have the GMT telescope yet, we wanted to kind of start to let teachers and their students know about this GMT project that's ongoing and will be built soon. So they came out for 3 days and stayed out at McDonald Observatory, kind of as Mark described, way out there in the middle of West Texas. From Austin, it takes me about 7 or 8 hours to get out there, and we have teachers from all over the country that came. We tried to highlight teachers came from different states that are represented by the consortium of the GMT. So we had some teachers from Arizona and California. We had a few teachers from Massachusetts and then other parts around the country as well, of course from Texas. And yeah, so we talked about the GMT, a little bit about telescopes, how they work. They got to tour all of the actual research telescopes we have out at the McDonald Observatory now. They built their own telescopes. They got to build their own Galileo scope. They stay out at the Astronomers Lodge out at McDonald Observatory, so they not only get to interact with us, the astronomy education team, but they get to interact with the researchers and engineers and astronomers who are out at the observatory, either live out there or the visiting astronomers are out there doing the observing, and they get to kind of talk to them at different times, at meal times, or when they're touring the telescope. So it's a kind of all-encompassing workshop. It's not just here's what the GMT is going to do. But we did talk a lot about the different science capabilities and did kind of fun hands-on activities related back to the science that the GMT will hopefully study and uncover the cool mysteries.
So what kind of things do the teachers see out there? Mark, can you tell us a little bit about the observatory and the tours you gave there?
Yes, so the opportunity is really fantastic for K-12 teachers, and of course in particular with the GMT workshop, it was aimed at secondary grades. Mm-hmm. So the opportunity for teachers is really significant at the observatory because we get to immerse them in this environment, this science research environment, and make the astronomy, make the research come to life for them, and to give their students, as a result, a real life application for things that they're experiencing in their class. So as part of our classroom activities, where we provide training for how to facilitate these activities for their students, we also provide guided tours, kind of as you were just describing. So at McDonald Observatory, the guided tour includes all of the major research telescopes that are here, and there are many. McDonald Observatory has a great, long, rich history of astronomical research and public school K-12 education. So of course there's lots to show. There's a telescope that was completed first in 1939. It was the second largest telescope in the entire world when it was completed. Now it's by far the second largest telescope, but it's still in use today. There is a 2.7 meter telescope. That's 107 inches in diameter. That telescope is used still every single clear night of the year, with the exception of some engineering runs once in a while. And that telescope is being used right now for many different types of research. And then, of course, there is the Hobby Eberly telescope, and that is one of the largest telescopes in the world today. It is a multi-mirror telescope. It utilizes state-of-the-art technology in engineering, telescope design, and is doing some really fascinating cutting-edge research that will eventually lead up to, hopefully, an understanding of one of the biggest mysteries right now in astronomy and for humankind, and that is why our entire home, our whole universe is expanding. So it will study dark energy. So teachers get to see these things during the workshop.
And I see Judy has joined you in the office.
Oh, Judy's right behind me. And here's my colleague, Judy. Yes, so we'll aim the camera here. Judy's with me here now.
Hi, Judy.
So
I don't know
let
if you
me
can
see.
see the mic or.
No, so let me make my settings change so that I can turn the microphone here on the computer, and then we'll join you together.
Sure, and I have a picture of some of the teachers, looking at the Hobby Eberly telescope, and in particular looking at the air cushions that are used to actually. It's been a long time since I was out there, but they're inflated. And the whole thing kind of moves on this very smooth air track.
It's kind of like you can think of it as a huge, large, like air hockey type puck stuff. Those air bearings, fill with air and make the telescope move around. The teachers are kind of lucky; they get an extra behind-the-scenes tour. They get to go right into the HET and see it and watch it move, and some of them even get to drive the telescope. Whereas just the general person that's come to visit the observatory, you can go on a great tour, but you don't get quite that up close and personal with the HET. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. Hi, Judy.
Hi.
Hi, I'd like to hear from you and what you do with the observatory and with the teacher workshops.
Well, I work with Mark, and I get to facilitate, that's a hard word to say, teacher workshops and school group visits and public visits. And when people ask me if I'm an astronomer, I tell them I'm an educator.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Very cool. So what kinds of, so you talked a little bit about dark energy being a very important thing for the Hobby Eberly telescope, and there are a whole range of science topics that the GMT is going to be used to explore. What kinds of science did you cover with the secondary school teachers?
Yeah, I can talk about a few, and Judy also actually helped. Judy and I we kind of facilitated this first GMT workshop, so she can talk about some of the other stuff too. One of the things that the GMT will hopefully do is be able to really take detailed images of kind of young stars that are forming, and maybe even directly image planets around these stars. And so we talked a little bit about the science of new star formation and kind of what these environments look like for how solar systems like our own developed and how they were formed. So we did some things related to that. Another big topic for the GMT will be looking kind of at sort of the beginning stages of our whole universe, looking kind of for some of the first galaxies and the first stars, being able to take detailed spectroscopic observations of them. So we talked about kind of like what we expect, some activities related to what the first stars in our universe, what they may have been like, and what those big, huge, massive stars have since done. When they go off as supernovae, what they have done, how they've helped the evolution of the universe as a whole and individual galaxies. Judy, do you want to talk about any of the maybe like more of the technical stuff we did with light or optics or lenses?
Well, yeah, we like to explore light and optics and spectroscopy and I'm thinking I should have pulled up the list of what we did at the workshop. We did that. Did we do that? What would the world be like without a supernova?
Yeah, so we presented
that was fun. But always I like the spectroscopy. Yeah. Let's just do more spectroscopy. And then the thing that we do at these workshops that's always really great is observing.
Yeah.
And we use our telescopes here at the observatory, and sometimes we use a bigger telescope, sometimes we use smaller ones at the visitor center, and we observe, because most of these teachers don't get to do that.
And not with nearly as dark a sky as you guys have at McDonald.
Right. Right, and also I want to be clear too that the GMT workshop was one of many workshops that we offer and provide through the summer. So yeah, we typically do quite a bit of them, but the GMT workshop was very special for us.
Actually, in the Showcase app, so those of you who are watching, I read in the comments earlier that there's now a notification telling you that the Showcase app and the Q&A app are in the same place. You can switch between them. And it seems, I take it back, I didn't get it started before the show. So I will share in the comments instead the link to the upcoming teacher professional development workshops. I think it's also in the show description as well. If you're listening to this later, it's in the show notes. So you guys can look into applying to go to, looks like the 2015 season has quite a few workshops already set up and ready to go.
Right. We're currently advertising those workshops on our website, McDonaldObservatory.org, and you can go on and you can get a chance to see what all the benefits are by attending these workshops. Now, of course, for anyone watching, there, of course, is a little bit of an effort to getting here.
Yeah.
Because, you know, as we mentioned, it's a little bit remote. You know, like if you looked at a map of nowhere, we like to say, we're in the middle of that map, okay? So it takes a little bit of an effort to get here. We encourage people to carpool, and we help you with that. And you can actually apply for the workshop right now.
Yeah, they're not kidding. We drove over from when I was a summer student in New Mexico, and we went for several hours without passing another car. Many hours without passing another car. It really is remote. Yeah. Beautiful though. I love deserts, so it's beautiful. Like it. And the landscape is amazing, and the night sky is killer. So it is totally worth the trip.
True, totally true.
So what kinds of I have a picture of some of the activities you guys did, including experimenting with lenses, which looks really familiar because I did this with some junior high students for a summer camp. Can you tell us a little bit about this and some of the other hands-on activities?
Yeah, sure.
Well, should I start?
Go ahead, Judy. Do you want to?
Okay. Well, one of the things that we try to do is make the activities that we do with teachers accessible and things that they can do and they can afford to do in their classes. And so the optics activity uses inexpensive plastic lenses and pieces of leftover paper that our printer spews out by accident and styrofoam cups. So you can see in the picture the kinds of things that we do, and we use a light bulb, and we look at what different lenses do for us, and we end up taking those two lenses and making them into something that works like a telescope. And it's a great activity, I think, great set of activities, talking about how you're focusing the light with a lens. And then we've been following that by building Galileoscopes. And so it all works together. You've got your objective lens and your eyepiece lens, and build a Galileoscope, and there you have it.
It's one of the fantastic activities that you'll find in Great Explorations of Math and Science. It's a GEMS activity.
Okay, cool. Yeah, here's the Galileoscopes in the making. This is really great because you get to see how the lenses work outside the telescope, and then you can actually put it together yourself.
Right.
Using the instruction. I have one over here. I have one somewhere in my office. Right.
It's wonderful because it helps to instruct what the various components of the telescope are. And by doing so, you really understand how the light is traveling through the telescope and what is occurring at the focus of the telescope and how it's magnifying and so forth and so on. So it's really great.
So what is it, so with when you're working with teachers, you have to align to what they need in the classroom. So you have to align to some set of standards. How do you guys take this really awesome cutting-edge science and apply the standards and mix them together?
Yeah, well, we definitely do try to make an effort to make sure we're addressing those standards, which are, of course, crucial for the teachers, helps them immensely directly in their classroom. So we try to tie in a majority of our activities or lesson plans that we present in the workshop. We tie them both to the national science education standards, or the next generation science standards that now come in place. Texas has its own science education standards across the board, across grade level, and astronomy is one of the a high school science class that's offered in a number of schools and everything around. So there's specific astronomy science standards for the high school level, as well as in the middle school and elementary grade levels, just in general science. So we try to address, of course, they're kind of can be a little bit, especially middle school or elementary, they're going to be, the science standards will be a little, the more general kind of concepts, talking about the solar system or the planets or the phases of the moon. When you start to get up to middle school and high school, that's why we kind of offer the workshops to specific grade levels, because then we can go in a little bit more detail. We can talk about light and optics that tie in. We'll talk about how, by doing the hands-on activity, they can see these ways that they can incorporate how lenses work, and then take that out to the next step, mirrors, and directly out to telescopes, and then going into like spectroscopy or light, and how different properties of light. So yeah, each workshop will kind of talk about that. We'll also give the teachers a chance kind of at the end of each day or a couple times throughout the day to sort of reflect on all the different activities we've done that day, and how that ties in specifically for them, and how they would maybe use that specifically in their classroom at their grade level. We'll do kind of like concept mapping. Sometimes teachers like it, sometimes they don't, but it gives them a chance just to sort of reflect at the end of the day on everything we've done, and have something to take back home, and they can be, oh yeah, this was good for this specific science standard, or this specific activity lesson I want to do in my classroom will tie into this overall concept.
Excellent. Can you tell us a little bit more about what a concept map is and how the teachers use that?
Yeah, so concept, we kind of leave it, it's sort of a free-form time for them, but we leave it concept map is, so maybe for them, the general, they can make, we give them a big piece of paper, construction paper, and and have different concepts, and everything can kind of be, you can make linkages between different things. So maybe they have their overall overreaching concept for the workshop is the workshop itself, or the theme of the workshop, whether it's galaxies or the giant Magellan telescope. And then, maybe they would make different sort of little bubbles for the different activities. But then again, the main thing is kind of making these linkages back from the different activities back to the science standards, and grouping different types of activities could be grouped together, and kind of making those connections, and how they will use them in the classroom when they go back at the end of the summer.
Cool. So was this the first time that the GMT workshop in particular was run, or is this?
Yes, this was the first time, and so we partnered with the GMT organization, so the sort of the overall head of the consortium. We worked with some of the project scientists at GMT, as well as some of their just the regular GMT staff, to kind of help us develop some of the content we wanted to, some of the main ideas we wanted to incorporate into the workshop. Another cool thing, when we do our workshops, we try to partner with a scientist or astronomer. Maybe it's even some of our workshops have sponsoring grants that helps us give scholarships to the teachers, and so we'll partner with that researcher that from the partnering grant, and we'll have a little bit of a time where they can either be there in person to talk and interact with the teachers and give them a little bit of a talk about their own research, their own science. Oftentimes we'll do that remotely by video conference just for a short period during the workshop. But this time for the GMT workshop, we actually were able to have the project scientist of the GMT, Rebecca Bernstein. She was able to give a nice talk to the teachers, and it was a good kind of tie-in to, after they've talked about the GMT and seen some of the activities and seen all the different types of telescopes we had at McDonald, to sort of bring it all back in and tie it back into the GMT, and so that happened towards the end of the workshop.
Cool. That that's something we learned when we did CosmoQuest professional development workshops. Is we wanted to be hands-on and standards-based and make sure we had all that stuff, and we almost forgot the first time. They're like, no, we want to hear this. We didn't want to just talk at them with science. They're like, no, we want a little bit of that. We want the scientists to tell us how it works on their end. So it's really, really good to get a mix of that in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. I have a question from Elad Avron. Elad, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. As teachers of teachers, what would you advise teachers to do when engaging with science deniers of sorts? I don't know if you talk about problematic issues in the classroom and things like that.
Yeah, can be a tricky issue. I don't even know if I have the best solution yet, even for my own personal interactions with people. I just always kind of go on it and tell people, science is evidence-based, and it's, fact-based, and, you can give them, lots of these things are theories, and they're ongoing theories, and we have lots of evidence to support them, but that's kind of the purpose of science in the first place, is to keep driving and keep trying to ask these questions and keep investigating and trying to, show that these things might still be the case, or maybe they're not, and so, until until something comes along, maybe we need to modify our theory, or we have new data. I mean, that's okay. That's not a bad thing. And that's kind of the whole purpose of science. I don't know, maybe Mark or Judy, they have other
Sure.
answers that they share.
Well, I would suggest to the person who asked your question that I would imagine that probably the difficulty in the classroom is not the denying of science as a process, but denying what science as a process has revealed.
Yeah.
I think that typically people who are maybe what we might refer to as somebody who is denying it is not denying the process that we go through to learn something new. It's that we're denying what it's telling us about nature. And that may be the thing that's rubbing somebody a little bit wrong for some reason or another, for some personal feeling or for some personal reason. As a science educator, our jobs are to explain to people what the process of science is. It's a learning process. We can't deny the process of science because it's the way that each of us learn new things, and it's basically the way that educators are taught to convey new information to students. And that's in fact the way that we convey information, new information, to our teachers in our workshops, is through a constructivist approach. We first assess what we currently know, and we build on what we currently know by making new connections that make sense to us, new connections that relate to the things we currently know and allow us to understand and to extend our knowledge to new things that we didn't know before. These are things that infants do. These are things that kindergartners do. 5th graders do it. 8th graders do it. Everybody does this. This is how we learn. And so when we deny something, it's not the process that we're denying. It's not it's not how we learned it. It's what it's telling us. Now, we're not doing these workshops to try to convince somebody that their upbringing was incorrect or that their current belief system is incorrect. What we're doing is to help people to understand what the process of science is teaching us and what wonderful, fantastic, and beautiful things that we're learning about nature through the process of science. So as a science teacher, it's not that and I'm just saying to keep that in mind as a science teacher, and I feel the pain out there, believe me.
You nailed it, man. That was a really, wow, I'm like so inspired right now. And Elad, I want to let you know we did as we were specifically asked this question a couple of times, and so we did a whole episode on it. I don't remember when, a while back, if you look through the archives, with the National Center for Science Education. We talked with Josh, I think we talked with Josh Rosenau about this very issue. Not so much as related to astronomy, but as related to biology teachers deal with evolution and climate change issues in the classroom. So we do have an episode on that where we kind of focused on that. But that answer was fantastic. So I've run into that myself a couple times. And
Well, I hope that answered his question. Can you find out somehow if we answered his question?
Let us know. Let us know in the Q&A, Elad. We have some questions. Question from Guido Vibra. So our my boss, Pamela Gay, went to grad school at Austin, and he was curious what kind of outreach, what other outreach programs you have going on at Texas and at McDonald.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about some other stuff we have here in Austin, and then I'll let Mark and Judy talk about more of the other stuff at McDonald. But yeah, it's a big outreach endeavor both here at UT Austin and at McDonald Observatory. And obviously, Pamela Gay is a great example of somebody that came from this system. Yeah, here in Austin, it's part of McDonald Observatory, but another big outreach thing that we do is the Stardate radio program and Stardate magazine. The magazine goes out bi-monthly, and the radio, the little snippets of radio that go on every day on public radio. It depends on your area, but I shouldn't even know the statistics. Maybe Mark or Judy know the exact number, but it's on hundreds, thousands of
I'm sure everybody can podcast it now, too.
yes, and you can get the podcast.
Yeah.
You can actually get the podcast for free on stardate.org. The day or 2 days after, you can get them for free, or you can get a cheap subscription to get the podcast live.
Cool.
So that's a big one we do here here in Austin. That's associated with McDonald Observatory. We do a lot of just general outreach, partnering with the university. We have public star viewing nights here in Austin, 3 nights a week.
Wow.
Great on our we have small telescopes on a couple of buildings here on campus.
That's a lot.
It doesn't compare to the star parties that they do out at the observatory. Also, 3 days a week. They get hundreds of visitors, probably on average every night. So they can tell you more about that.
Cool. Yeah. Want to tell us about the observatory star parties?
Yeah, let me talk a little about our public programs. During the daytime, we offer guided tours to 2 of our research telescopes, and the only way for any person, just regular people, not teachers, regular people, to see the 2.7 meter telescope is to take the guided tour. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they have to stay in the lobby and look at the pictures. They can see the Hobby Everly telescope on the self-guided tour, but they don't get my explanation of it. So it's not as good. And we also do what we call a solar viewing. We have some telescopes with filters and cameras, and we send live images of the sun to our theater, and the person who's doing the program talks about what we know about the sun and what we understand about the sun, and it's like a 45-minute program, and often we see some really cool stuff. And the other day I was so lucky. Did you see that prominence? It was this enormous prominence. Oh. And I turned on my live view of the sun on this big theater screen, and here's this prominence. It goes all the way across this screen, and I had like 8 people in my program, and they're all going, yeah. So part of my job as an educator is people. Most of my job as an educator is regular people. So that's during the daytime, and that's every day of the year except for 3 holidays. And I'll forget which ones, but anyway. Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Day. Otherwise, we do that twice a day. Wow. Then 3 nights a week we have our public star parties, and our star parties are held at the Visitor Center, and depending on what we expect for crowds, we'll set up last night we had 5, we might go up to 15 telescopes. Our telescopes go as big as 24 inches and down as small as, 4? Little. And point at whatever is great to look at.
Cool.
And we do a constellation tour, and we do some other things, and if it's cloudy, we still have a program because we can't send 400 people home without a program of some sort. And we do indoor things. We might do spectroscopy. We might talk about how to find satellites. We do all kinds of cool stuff. And we also have, I keep forgetting, we have the Twilight program, which is an educational program. It's a Star Party night program, and it supplements the Star Party, and it's about an hour long, a little extra stuff for people who want even more from us. And sometimes of the month it's a program about the solar system right now, and sometimes of the month it's a program about the moon, and it kind of depends on what we're going to be looking at. And like last night was a full moon night, and so the program was about the moon. And then the program specialist who did that program ran one of the telescopes pointing out one of the parts of the moon that specialist had talked about. So, and folks really seem to like that. I don't present that program myself. But.
Also, we have, of course, K-12 education, students that visit the observatory with their teachers, and also our video conferencing program. For example, on the 20th through the 24th of this month, I'll be holding what's called Astronomy Day by video conference, and so there will be, I expect during that period of time, the 20th through the 24th, about 15,000 students will be connected with McDonald Observatory to learn about what takes place here, the process of science, once again, and what it's revealing about the sun. And we make live observations of the sun in their classroom. They make drawings. We do science, and it's a wonderful experience for the students because there are far, far too many students that have never safely observed the sun
Yeah.
and seen our own star in a safe way, and we're trying to change that.
Cool. Very cool. I just wanted to point out, Elad says, thank you. Yes, that was a brilliant answer. So,
Okay,
from Move 4. So back to the teacher, so you did the GMT teacher professional development for the first time. What kind of feedback did you get from the teachers who did that program?
Overall, we got really good feedback. The overall way the workshop is structured has been successful in the past, and our GMT teachers really appreciated that, and they like the interactions with both the astronomers and the educators, being able to stay on the mountain. We're hoping to develop, I think one of the things that they would want to get out a little bit more, or once we have more of the content, is actually GMT developed, real curriculum that once the telescope is either more online or we actually have science coming out of it, and that's kind of our hopefully our plan will be down the line. We'll be able to have more stuff that really ties in directly to the GMT and the science that it does. So that we'll be building on that, and that will hopefully go into future workshops that will be involving the GMT workshop. And another thing we were hoping to do, and we got good feedback from this from the teachers, is to keep. We sometimes have teachers that come back, a couple years later and attend a different workshop if they get selected. But we're really hoping to keep this group of GMT teachers and their students connected and stay kind of a part of the overall collaboration and group from this point on through when the telescope is finally built and has first lights, and so that we form this network of the teachers and their students, and it's not just a one-off summer workshop, that they stay connected. And so we got a good response and good feedback on that. And we sent out this announcement to those teachers that participated. I'm sure a lot of them are right in the middle of class today, but hopefully some of them will check it out after the fact on the archive.
Excellent, excellent. And then you talked a bit about the scientific process. I noticed you did a kind of a scientific model survey at the beginning. What kind of things did the teachers learn about the scientific process as well as the science itself?
Yeah, we do that with a lot of our workshops, that scientific models survey, and it's kind of it starts as an open-ended discussion. We have them work in small groups, but then as a larger group, we kind of talk about it. And so just asking the questions, what makes up a scientific model, or questions, a couple of questions are things like, how would you explain the scientific process to somebody that didn't know about it? How would you put it in terms they could understand? What are important parts that might need to go into a model for science? And kind of getting around some of those ideas they might not think about, like a model can be something visual, it could be a computer model, it could be a mathematical model. And a lot of them know all this, but it's just kind of getting it started to talk about at the beginning of a workshop. And then it's something they can, again, take back and use directly in their classroom with their students.
And so what is it like, this sounds like a fully immersive experience, because they're staying in the dorms and they're eating in the cafeteria, which is pretty good if I remember. So what was that like for them being a part of the community for a few days there?
Yeah, it's always a highlight, I would say, of any workshop we do, but yeah, especially for this group as well. They always, when we do end of the workshop evaluations or get feedback from them later on, they always kind of state that that's one of the best things, that kind of a part that makes McDonald Observatory workshops a little bit unique. They're not just in their local school district or something, and even though it is, as Mark and Judy explained, way out there in the middle of nowhere, it is a trek to get out there, but those that can make it, it is a great experience. They get to talk to other astronomers, and some that might not even be involved in the specific science that their workshop is centered around. They still get a chance to talk to them at dinner time. When they go visit the telescopes. It really is, as you said, an immersive experience. I think I don't feel like we've ever had any negative feedback related to that aspect of the workshop.
No, what they want is more time.
Yeah.
Usually changes their life essentially in the classroom.
Cool.
We see so many teachers that arrive here, they feel beat up, they feel like they have no time to teach what they're really passionate about, they don't feel confident to teach astronomy. They have been, many teachers have been placed in a teaching environment and situation that they feel ill-prepared to do a good job in, because they're doing it out of a sense of duty. And when they leave, they are refreshed, they're motivated, they're confident, they're informed, they're able to do what they want to do in the classroom. And we follow up with them, and we typically see them again. And so we take so much pride in what we do because we see such a change in these teachers when they leave. Because this is a subject matter that it can be very difficult to teach if you're not prepared to teach it. So.
One of the things I wanted to say is that teachers have told us that they found it valuable to be able to talk to each other about this. And if you think about it, astronomy teachers, usually in a school there's going to be one.
Right.
And so they don't have other astronomy teachers to talk to. And so they're able to talk to the whole, 14 other teachers, and they really like that. And they can, share their ideas and their approaches to things.
Yeah. And this works. This works because the model that we use, Nicole, is that we put the teachers in the role of being the student. Mm-hmm. And we take the role of being the instructor. So we don't show them everything. We start with the process of learning the constructivist approach, and they're comfortable with that. And they're of course they don't have to furiously take notes about how to teach this particular lesson or this concept, because we're taking them through it the way that they will with their students. Mm-hmm. So when they're finished, because they were in the role as a student, they feel much more confident because they've been trained specifically for how to instruct and how to convey new information to students. They feel more confident to do that.
Awesome. Excellent, excellent. Gosh, I had another question and it just flew out of my head because I was thinking about that putting the teachers in students, in the role of students, and how they are some of the, it's so funny to watch them learn the way their students do and then say, oh, this is the point where my student would throw up their hand and say this.
Exactly.
And sometimes the teachers do that.
Exactly. And we encourage them to say, answer this question the way you feel your students would answer this question.
Right.
We're not putting any teachers on the spot, but we want to know how would their students answer this question and how can we help you in the classroom now. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Let me see if we have any other questions. Just a reminder, you guys watching, you can use the Q&A app to ask us any questions or leave comments or feedback while we're watching. And I do have to point out this comment from earlier from Nancy Graziano, our buddy over in New Jersey. Mark, you need to do radio broadcast. You have an amazing voice for it.
That's nice. Thank you.
I'm glad you're doing the webcast as well. Any other particular instances that stand out for each of you while working with these teachers? Some aha moment or something really inspiring that you saw?
Oh, when was there not an aha moment?
That's cool. That's cool. That's what you want to hear. And do you send them back with resources, or do you have resources that you could recommend for our viewers for teaching astronomy?
Well, I'll jump in if you want. Do you want to answer that?
Go ahead.
We do provide resources, lots of resources. Mm-hmm. We don't bury teachers with resources at the beginning. Like I said, we put them in the role of being an inquisitive student, and they leave with tools that they need that come from the workshop and specifically from the activities that we've done with them. In terms of like a flash drive that's completely full of information, mm-hmm. including information we didn't necessarily even cover in the workshop, but they've received some basic training. We typically kind of tend to traditionally stay away from providing somebody that we've never met before, someone we've never had any connection with activities without training them to do the activities in the classroom. Because we find that typically, or at least research indicates that providing somebody with a lot of activities and no training, typically those activities don't get used.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have on our McDonald Observatory website, there is a place that we have some published activities and lessons. A lot of these are the ones someone will do in our classrooms or we'll do at other bigger teacher conferences when we present there. So they are accessible, and teachers want to get to them, they can get them that way. They're free and able to use them in the classroom.
Cool. Yeah, I noticed you had a link to NASA Wavelength as well, which is just such a great repository we've brought up on the show many times because I find it really useful when I'm looking for, okay, I have this much time in an informal setting, this age, what kinds of activities
Right.
are available that you can kind of pull out. But like you said, if it's best if you've had some training, right? If you go to one of these workshops and learn how to use them from people who design them or people who have used them lots themselves. That definitely makes a difference. I was wondering if you, I don't remember which telescope this was, but the story of the telescope that got shot.
Oh.
And if you would care to tell the story to our viewers who may have not heard this story before.
Mark, you've been here the
Oh,
longest.
gosh. Okay. So once upon a time,
Yeah.
there was a telescope that lived at McDonald Observatory that did get shot 7 times, as a matter of fact, and it got hit with a hammer. So the telescope still exists. It's still one of the best telescopes in existence today to do astronomical research. It didn't ruin the telescope,
Yeah.
but yes, it's true that in the early 1970s, just a few years after the telescope was put into service here at McDonald Observatory, and I'm referring to the 2.7 meter telescope, so that's 107 inches in diameter. There was an employee here at the observatory who was carrying, let's just say it was kind of a bit of a grudge, and let it out on the telescope on the primary mirror. So probably your viewers are mainly aware that telescopes have mirrors of this size, and they're pretty large mirrors, and they are not like the mirrors that are in our bathrooms and in our cars. They are typically very robust, they're very thick, they're very heavy typically when they are just one big mirror. On the telescope, this mirror weighs about 4.5 tons. It's about a foot thick. It's got a beautiful hyperbolic curvature at the surface. It's coated on the top surface with aluminum. And so this employee did, in fact, take the telescope down to a position where he could actually walk into the telescope, which is not uncommon. It's something that engineers do here at the observatory frequently. Although we don't typically distribute armed weapons to our engineers, he had one and went into the telescope and bang, bang, shot the mirror more than a couple of times.
It would have been really noisy.
Yes, definitely. It was, and in fact, a few of the other employees on different floors of the dome heard the gunshots and went investigating. Typically not the kind of sound you want from a major astronomical research facility, and discovered this fellow. And so they apprehended him, and he did put bullet holes into the mirror, and he also became pretty agitated that his shots did not destroy the mirror, so he hit it with a hammer, which also did minimal damage to the mirror. So he was apprehended and then given a new job in some other state far, far away, and as the damage was assessed.
Yeah.
So it did turn out there was a little bit of damage to the surface of the mirror. So technically speaking, it collects a tiny itty-bitty weensy amount of light, little less than it did before he shot it. But the mirror of the telescope still performs in a fantastic way, and to all specifications that we need it to. And so that's the end of the story of how one of the large, I think actually, so the trivia might be, it's I think the largest telescope in the world to have been shot.
I love that story, first of all, because the telescope makes it out okay. But when I was a student, and even now, these human stories of things that happen in astronomy around mind-bogglingly huge equipment and involving mind-bogglingly huge equipment just fascinate me. And so
And I'd also like to just point out briefly, as a little side note to the story, that he wasn't a science denier. It didn't come from his angst or his anger. His grudge was not from that particular area. I think he was a little mentally disturbed.
Yeah,
Personal.
it was something personal. Yeah. I just wanted to screen share a picture of that telescope that was being visited by the teachers during the workshop. So if that helps you imagine the story a little better. And yeah, this telescope's still in use. Was this the one that was used to observe Comet Temple, the one that was hit with the Deep Impact probe?
Yes.
That's Temple Tuttle. That's
Temple
correct.
Tuttle. Thank you.
I
don't remember if it was a telescope or another or several others that.
I think that happened when the comet was pretty low in our sky, and I think there may have been some clouds.
Okay.
But as I recall, several of our telescopes were pointed in that direction.
Okay. I was there that night, so I was trying to remember which of the telescopes.
Oh, they also most of our telescopes were pointed at Jupiter when that comet smashed into Jupiter.
Yeah. Right.
Way
right.
back.
Schumacher Levy 9.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. In 96?
Yeah.
I believe so.
I was there in
94.
for the Deep Impact. I wasn't at one of the telescopes I was observing. I was watching NASA TV with a bunch of people in one of the common areas. But yeah, that was a pretty cool experience for me. So I highly recommend if you can get out to McDonald Observatory and check it out, take a tour. The star parties sound amazing. Do so. And like I said, I've included the link in the comments, and we'll include it in the show notes as well for future opportunities to do teacher professional development at McDonald Observatory, since that sounds really awesome. Michael Jobin says the telescope has battle scars. It's fair to say. Nancy Graziano asked a really good question. This is for everyone. What has been your most gratifying experience to come out of these workshops? Is there a particular instructor or situation that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, for me, there's been lots of small ones, and it's those moments when a teacher, even if it's more almost free form or it's not even part of the full structured workshop, but when you get into the really good discussions with the teachers and they have those aha moments, and you can see that something's kind of clicked for them, or you can see that enjoyment on their faces when they tell you, well, they've never seen the night sky like this before, and they wish all their students could experience this, and they're going to take, they're taking hundreds of pictures of their workshop trip, and they plan to share them with their students, and you can see the excitement from them directly, and you hope that goes for, that impacts specifically with the students as well.
Cool.
Yep, what she said.
For me, there have been several. The biggest ones for me, I'll tell you, are when I have teachers that come to the workshop and they say that their school does not teach astronomy, and that they do not have the support of their administration to teach astronomy, but they are here, in fact, because they are passionate about it, or perhaps a teacher that says that they have been told that they'll no longer teach astronomy. And then they'll come back to us and say, guess what? We're teaching astronomy in our school. Our students now are getting the information that you gave to me, and so thank you. And so that's just huge. That means we impact these students. Every time we impact a teacher, the impact is multitude by their students and their classes.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us here on Learning Space. Thank you for sharing the GMT teacher program with us and all the cool stuff you guys have going on at McDonald Observatory. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Georgia, my co-host, will be back next week. She's been going to one conference to another. I'll have to check the schedule to see if we've got next week's topic lined up. We have several topics coming up, including in 2 weeks I'd like to do what I announced, I think, last time, a fan show. So you guys, some of you guys are here every week asking great questions and leaving great comments, and so if you want to be a part of the fan show, sharing some of your favorite resources, You can email us at educate@cosmoquest.org, or you can ping me on Twitter. You guys know I'm Noisy Astronomer, and let us know you'd like to be part of the show. So thank you again to Keely and Judy and Mark. Do you have any last words of advice or wisdom or things you want to share before we head out?
Thanks for having us. Yeah, come see us at McDonald, and we're planning to have another GMT teacher workshop this next summer. So hopefully we'll see some new people and some new faces out there.
Thank you for this. This has really been super fun.
Awesome.
And say hello to your boss for us.
I will. She's in Australia right now, but I'll let her know next week when she gets back. Sounds good. Thank you, and apologies for the tech issues. Google is changing things every week, so we'll just try and roll with it. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.